Good morning, my friends. Today we're doing grammar lesson 9.3 on conjunctive adverbs. And these are going to seem very familiar to you. You actually use them in your writing occasionally, but unfortunately, a lot of times the punctuation that goes with them is used wrong. So I want you to pay close attention to this lesson today and make sure that you understand how these are used and how they need to be punctuated. All right. So a conjunctive adverb connects two independent clauses. And it's going to, depending on which one you pick, it's going to explain the relationship between what's going on in those two clauses. So you have to be very careful that you pick the correct adverb to use so that the relationship is clear. When you use these conjunctive adverbs, you need to make sure that there is a semicolon in front of that adverb and a comma behind it. All right. So here's an example. Cities offer many attractions. Nevertheless, some people prefer to live in the country. So nevertheless is the conjunctive adverb. It is joining the two independent clauses of cities offer many attractions and some people prefer to live in the country. Remembering that independent clauses could stand alone as separate sentences, but in this case, we're using the conjunctive adverb to show the relationship between those clauses, excuse me. So in this case, we're showing that even though this is happening, this still happens. So nevertheless is saying this happened, but it doesn't really matter because this is happening. All right. Now notice that there's a semicolon right in front of it, a comma right after it. That's how this has to happen. So a lot of times you might use the word however or some other conjunctive adverb in your writing, but most of the time you don't put that semicolon and you just put a comma after it. Or you might have it at the beginning of the sentence, when in fact it should be joining two sentences together or two independent clauses together. And this is the way that you should do that. All right, so let's look at some common conjunctive adverbs. Now, I'm not going to read this whole list to you, but I definitely want you to write down all of these so that you are familiar with them and make sure you understand what their meaning is. Before you pick one and use it in your writing, make sure you understand what you're trying to say and which one is the appropriate one to use. You, most of the time, will probably use something like also, besides, however. But keep in mind when you use those and you're joining the two independent clauses, that's when you need the semicolon, that's when you need the comma after it. Okay? So keep that in your mind as you are growing in your writing practice. Now, parenthetical expressions, they are used exactly like these conjunctive adverbs. And that's why it's in this lesson, because they work the exact same way. What do I mean by that? They are used to join independent clauses. They have to be preceded by a semicolon and they have to be followed by a comma. All right. So, what do I mean by a parenthetical expression? Here in this example, Missy often illustrates her composition. In fact, she would rather draw than write. So in this case, we've got in fact, that is a parenthetical expression. We've got two independent clauses. Missy often illustrates her composition and she would rather draw than write. So most of the time in your writing, you would tend to just put a period after composition and start a new sentence with in fact. But when you are trying to connect these two ideas with these two independent clauses, the appropriate thing to do would be to put a semicolon after that first clause and then add that parenthetical expression with a comma and join those two thoughts together. All right. Now, let's go over the common parenthetical expressions. Most of these are pretty familiar to you. You probably use for example or in fact. On the contrary, you might not use as often, but that would be something that would be the other side of something. So I'm showing you this, but on the other side, it's this, or on the other hand would be the same way. So just like with the conjunctive adverbs, you need to make sure you're familiar with these and how you would use them appropriately as you start to use them in your writing. Let's do a little bit of practice. And the lesson that you have to do today is very, very simple. You just have to find the adverb or the expression. Okay, so let's look at the first one. One solution to the lack of space is to construct buildings high in the air. Nevertheless, land is still scarce. So if I look at that, I can see distinctly that I've got two independent clauses. One solution to the lack of space is to construct buildings high in the air. That can be its own sentence. And then I've got land is still scarce. That can be its own sentence. But these two bits of information go together. One leads to the other. So in this case, I'm going to add that semicolon, and I'm using the word nevertheless to connect those ideas. So I've got semicolon, nevertheless, comma. And now those two ideas are connected together, and I'm showing the relationship between them. So when you do your practice today, all you have to do is find that conjunctive adverb or the parenthetical expression. Very simple. Let's look at the next one. Some space was left for green areas. In fact, there are more than 100 parks in New York City. So where is the conjunctive adverb there? Hopefully you said in fact. Okay? And that's all you're going to have to do today. Third one, the Chrysler Building is no longer the tallest building in Manhattan. However, it is still one of the most beautiful. What do you see there? What's the conjunctive adverb there? Hopefully you said however. And the last one, many other cities in the United States have gained recognition, namely Los Angeles, Chicago, and Houston. Do you see it in that one? Hopefully you said namely. Now, I'm hoping that this helps you as you are learning to write with more depth and more clarity, helps you to clarify how this should be done. So a lot of times you're going to, currently in your writing, you use the words like however and in fact to start a new sentence. But if you are connecting ideas by connecting two sentences together, this is the appropriate way to do this. Okay, I hope that helps. If you have any questions as you go through this lesson or as you do your practice, please do not hesitate to send me a message or send me an email, and I will get back to you as soon as possible. Have a great day. Bye.